Hey church family, hope you're having a good week. I've had a busy week myself, but today I got to sit down a minute and do a little reflection. And I thought I would bring to you today a Bible lesson from 1 Samuel chapter 16, if you want to read that in your Bibles. I'm going to do a story, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what happened in the story. Today's lesson is going to be called Prophet with a Purpose. Prophet with a Purpose. So I'm going to read the little story, and then we'll talk about it when I get finished. So the story begins of saying that God told Samuel, I want you to go to the house of Jesse, and you're going to anoint the next king of Israel. And so Samuel goes to this house, and when he arrived at the house, he realized that there's a lot of boys and a lot of men that live in this house. And Samuel has to find one of those boys to become the next king. Now, if you were going to pick the new king, you need to think about what kind of person would be a good king. If you were just looking at the people, you might want to find somebody that's very strong, or you might want to find tall, or that's good looking and has big muscles. And so when Samuel arrives, he starts looking around and he realizes that Jesse actually has 8 sons. Can you imagine have 8 brothers and sisters? And so one by one, they came to meet Samuel. And of course, if you're meeting the person who is going to pick you as a king, you want to be all standing tall and nice, and you want to be chosen. So they come one by one, and they shake hands with Samuel, and they introduce themselves. And so son number 1 was the oldest son. And so he's thinking, I would be a good king. I'm the oldest. Son number 2, he comes to Samuel, and he's very tall, very tall. This would be a good king, a tall man for a king. Son number 3 was very handsome. He looked nice, and he might look like a good king. Son number 4, he was strong. He had muscles, and he would be a very good, strong king. Son number 5, he was a hard worker. So he would be good as a king. You want a king that's hard working. Son number 6 was liked by everybody. Good person, very friendly. Son number 6, well liked. Son number 7. Son number 7 had nice clothes on. He was dressed very nice. He looked nice in his clothes. So now Samuel has 7 boys. And remember, they're the oldest, and there's a tall one, and there's one that's strong, and there's one that's handsome, and one that's everybody likes. And how was Samuel going to choose which boy was going to become the king? What would you do? Would you pick the tall one? Would you pick the one that had muscles? Which one would you pick? I don't know. I don't know who I would pick. So Samuel didn't know who to pick. All of them would be very good kings. Tall and handsome and strong and hardworking. All of them would make very, very good kings. But every time that Samuel saw number 1 and number 2 and number 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, God said, no, not him. And Samuel's like, what am I going to do? So when he met number 1, nope. When he met number 2, nope. Number 3, number 4, number 5, no. And so each time God, he was just a little whisper in Samuel's ear saying, "Nope, not the king, not the king." And finally, he says, "This is not the one I have chosen." He says, "Do not look at the way a person looks on the outside. Look at a way the person looks on the inside." What's on the inside right here in our chest? What is that? What do you feel? Our heart. So God says, don't look at how tall they are. Don't look at how strong they are. He says, do not look at their clothes. And so what I haven't told you is that there was one more son. So he goes through all 7, but there's one more. There's an 8th son, and his name was David. And David was watching the sheep. He was out in the fields watching the sheep. He was not with the other boys. He did not come in there and shake Samuel's hand, ready to be king. He was out in the field doing his job, doing his chore, watching the sheep. And so his father sent for David. "Come here, come meet Samuel." And here comes young David. He did not look like a king. Did not look like a king at all. And all his brothers were thinking, no, he's not going to be the king. But God said, "This is the one I have chosen." And Samuel listened, and he knew that God was telling him to pick young David to be the new king. God looked at the inside. God looked at David's heart. He knew that David had a good heart. It didn't matter how tall David was. It didn't matter how strong David was. He looked at the inside, at his heart, not on the outside. And therefore, Samuel decided to anoint David to be the new king of Israel. So this story reminds us that God does not look at our clothes and our hair. He does not look at our outward appearance. He wants us to have a good, pure, clean heart. A good, clean, pure heart. In Matthew, there's a Bible verse that talks about having a pure heart. And it says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." So a lot of times we judge people based on their clothes and their hair and what they look like on the outside. And we need to remember that the outside is not what's important. It's what's on the inside. It's what's in our heart that's important. And I say this, we are all guilty. We are all guilty when we go, you're in Walmart or you go to school and you see people who maybe their clothes are not clean, or maybe their hair is messed up. Maybe they have long hair. Maybe they have short hair. Maybe they have a little bit of dirt on their face. And maybe you look at them a little funny. But sometimes those people are the kindest, nicest people that you will ever meet. So just because someone looks different on the outside doesn't mean that they're a bad person. Just be very cautious and very careful about judging people. You've probably heard someone say, "Don't judge a book by its cover." That is so true. If you go to the library and you're trying to find a new library book, sometimes we are looking for a picture or some pretty cover, and sometimes the best books have no pictures at all. Maybe it's the old brown book. It might end up being the best book on the inside, but you may not have chosen it because it was ugly or brown and old on the outside. So remember, God looks on the inside. It doesn't matter what's on the outside. Keep that in mind this week as we try to guard our hearts and keep our hearts pure. And try not to judge people based on what they look like. I hope you guys have a great week and everybody stay safe. And we hope to see you guys Sunday at church.